Hey everybody, today is Sunday, February 15th, 2009, and you are listening to episode number 89 of On Tap. I'm your host, Dale Coulis, and I got Dick joining me alongside today. Welcome, man. And joining me on the other end of the Tin Cannon stream, we got three very, very special guests today. John, Mo, and Hilden from the Drunken Gamers Radio, or robotpanic.com. Welcome.
Thanks, dude. Good to be with you. It's the legendary On Tap podcast, man.
I don't know about that, but pretty much you guys were like, of course, like one of my inspirations for starting to go into podcasting. And remember, you guys were one of the first video game podcasts I listened to. So for me, this is just awesome to have you guys come on here. And we're going to be talking about some old school TurboGrafX games. So let's continue our console, kind of like our console retrospectives. We did them in the past. We had kind of last summer we did like kind of like a series of like kind of like old school system retrospectives. So we're going to keep up the trend, and of course I had to get the DGR guys on here because these guys are kind of like the authority on old school TurboGrafX games. But before we hop into that, let's just kind of start off every show like we usually do. Start off what games we've been playing, and gosh, I don't know about John. You want to start things off from us?
Yeah, sure. Most notably this week I've been playing a lot of Retro Game Challenge for the DS, and this is a game that all your listeners should go out and buy right now.
I agree.
It's have you been playing it at all, Dale?
Yeah, I picked it up just a couple days ago. Only had a chance to put like a half hour into it, but I love it.
Yeah. I just finished unlocking all of the games in it, and it's pretty spectacular all the way through. So yeah, the premise is you basically it's based on a Japanese game show or Japanese television show called Game Center CX, where it's basically there's this guy named Arino who kind of locks himself in a room and plays old school NES games, and so these are 8 games they're new games, but they're developed in the old school 8-bit NES style, with all the shortcomings of those games as well. So you'll have some jittery graphics and some some no save points for the most part. But yeah, it's really well done. It's a loving tribute to your childhood, basically. And for that reason, you guys should all check it out. Also, a lot of Chrono Trigger on the DS. Just about done with that, but it's at the end it gets pretty punishing. And Flower on the PlayStation Network. It's
and on your new summer dress.
Yes, Flower's on my summer dress as well. I wear my summer dress, and
it looks nice.
I hold a parasol while I play Flower.
He's practicing, of course, warming up for Fat Princess with this as well. But
right, I am a fat
now. Is
princess.
Flower as trippy as I hear?
What's that?
Is Flower as trippy as everyone else is making it out to be?
I don't know about trippy necessarily.
No, it's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful game. It's like you're playing a painting.
Yeah. It's very relaxing and soothing, and you just want to just fly around the field. And,
yeah, it's very experiential,
and experiential. Wow. Is that a Hilden? What is that?
No, it's an experience. It's not much a game. It's experiential. That's what it is. You sit down and you experience a moment.
It's experience and it's ential.
There you go.
Right.
Fuck you.
Duh.
Fuck all of you.
Right.
Hilden
so it's a beautiful game. It's really nice. And I think and then a bunch of old school NES games. Actually, I got inspired. And I went and picked up a bunch of really bad movie licensed games for the NES, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes!
Bill and Ted's Excellent Video Game Adventure.
Oh, nice.
As well as Willow. What else? Jaws. Yes. And
Willow.
And Friday the 13th, the video game. And some other crap, but it's been one of those weeks. That's me.
Please tell me you have Back to the Future in there also.
I actually had that one in my hand, but I thought Jaws was too important.
Oh, Back to the Future is utter shit.
So is Jaws. So.
Oh, well, a majority of those movie games were back in the day. All right.
It's true. But you remember Top Gun? Oh, that was good stuff.
Try to land the plane, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Stupid aircraft carriers.
So,
and their water everywhere.
So what have you been playing,
It's all
Mo?
a ploy. I just played. I was off almost all week, and just on Friday night I played just Left 4 Dead, and I bought Halo 3 yesterday because
you did?
it was
Whoa.
$25. So
Nice.
I figured that was about time. I still stand by my previous statements that it is in fact for pussies, but nonetheless, $25. I'll put on my skirt too and prance around the lobby
With the rest of the douche.
That's right. So that's about it.
I'll loan you my parasol.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Hilden.
I've been playing Flower. I've been playing Game of the Year, One Chunbara, otherwise known as Bikini Samurai Squad.
Yeah.
It's got boobs, very little clothing, dual-wielding swords, machine guns, and zombies, blood everywhere.
It's pretty much perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect game.
Oh, it's a Game of the
I
Year.
think I remember seeing
Game
something
of the-
about that in EGM a few issues back. And gosh,
Oh, it's all you could ever hope for. It's basically your worst B movie put into video game form, and yet somehow stays engaging. I don't know.
I can't imagine.
I can't imagine what that would be. I don't know.
I think actually, what you meant to say is I can't imagine what that would double D.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been playing that and Cran Physics Deluxe on the iPhone.
Nice.
That's been my week right there.
yeah, up here in the Midwest, we aren't even, or at least in North Dakota, anyways. They don't even sell iPhones up here because they don't see us as a viable market. So, unfortunate.
That's hilarious. Does AT&T even have towers that reach that far north?
I have no idea. Apparently not.
Huh.
I don't know. They sell iPod Touches up here, so maybe I'll have to get one of those because I keep hearing all these great things about iPhone games, and I gotta say,
Look into the. You could look into the Canadian market too, because you could be considered sub-Canada.
sometimes I think we are. Yeah. All right, let's see. Dick, what have you been playing lately, man?
The old standard WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64. That's pretty much it.
Just WWF No Mercy on N64.
Yep.
That's awesome.
A little ECW Hardcore Revolution, but not for long. I can't stand that game.
No, that's cool.
But other than that, not much.
Have you guys ever played any of the N64 wrestling games?
I was just going to comment on that. Strangely enough, no, we haven't.
Actually, at the time the N64 was out, I was dating this girl who had two younger brothers. We've mentioned them frequently, on the show. But
She was big into wrestling.
that whole fam, they were from Texas.
Yeah.
They were all big into wrestling, and so often they would rent the whatever it was, WCW or whatever, and the WWF, I guess, at the time. So yeah, I have seen some of that stuff. I have seen some of it.
The last wrestling game that I ever played, Gruel, was WrestleMania. I don't remember.
The
It was
arcade game,
the
man.
arcade game.
That game was
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and you could be like, Macho Man Randy Savage, baby.
Yeah.
That was my guy right there.
Saw Jim Duggan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that game was sweet.
That's as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, the old school arcade wrestling, WWF wrestling games, those are badass. You have Mr. Perfect, Jake the Snake Roberts. They had like a who's who of like the old school like 80s and 90s there.
Oh, we didn't mean to get you started.
Oh no! We're going to change full course. And no, well, actually, now that Dick brings up No Mercy, I have to get a quick plug in here. At Midwest Gaming Classic, I'm actually at the VG EVO booth. I'm actually going to do a thing where for like about an hour, just call it the On Tap No Mercy Wrestling Challenge, where I'll be taking on all comers, and the first two people who can beat me get either a PSN or Xbox Live $20 credit card.
Nice.
So, bam, bring it. No.
Do you think there will be two people in all of the land who can vanquish you?
Oh, I think so. No, no.
I won't leave until I win.
I think No Mercy is like the only, or like the N64 wrestling games are like the only ones I think are the only games I could really play on like a real high level. I think so. I'm hoping to see some good competition out there.
Nice.
But for what I've been playing lately, this past week, I finally beat Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yes.
Badass game.
Yeah, it is.
Probably one of the best comic games I've ever played. But it took me about 5 separate. There were 5 previous attempts at starting that game. With various friends. Eventually, some just lost interest, so it was hard to get some over to play. And on like the 6th playthrough is a charm, apparently. And I found a coworker, and we actually played it over Xbox Live after work a couple times a week for a few weeks there. And gosh, damn, that game's awesome. I can't believe I managed to beat it before the sequel comes out. It seems like that one's just keep getting delayed and pushed back. And I also beat the original Fable, the last chapter on Xbox. Yeah, that game. And I'm surprised how well that game still holds up for being like 4.5 years old. And
oh yeah, I still love playing that. I mean, that's still a great game.
Well, like I picked up Fable 2 a few months back. I found a decent deal on it, and I just told myself when I had the original Fable, I only put like a few hours into it right when it came out, unfortunately, and I was like, no, I gotta beat the first Fable before I start the second one. So yeah, I'm finally glad I got it beat, so now I can actually start the second one. And yeah, the first Fable is just awesome. I can't wait to see what the second one has in store for me. And let's see here, like John, retro game challenge, just a little bit, but yeah, just like you, John, I really like the whole vibe and feel for that game. It feels just like the good old NES days. I really like how it has like that in-game magazine or whatever, Game Fan.
Yeah, the Game Fan. That's awesome.
I was surprised as hell when I was like flipping through that. I'm like, is that Shoe? No, it can't be.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, and let's see. Speaking of retro stuff, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection, and picked that up.
Oh, I looked for that, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, stores weren't really starting to get it in until like Thursday. I noticed that's when I was able to get one. And me and my brother, we kind of played. We didn't beat any of them, but we just kind of played a lot of the old school Streets of Rage games because I just remember having a blast with those games way back when. And Streets of Rage 1 is kind of still a little hokey. It's still fun, but like Streets of Rage 2, that one still holds up splendidly today. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing. But before we move on, we actually got one email here before we get to the TurboGrafX stuff. And for our listeners that want to write in, we'll read and respond to your email on the air because we rarely get any, so write in. That email address is mailbag@ontappodcast.com. And this comes from a guy who, well, he just leaves his PSN ID, which is XX William A. XX. Hello, I am a relatively new listener of On Tap and a new member of VGEVO. I was trying to think of a good question to ask as it is my first time writing in, so here it is. I was recently dusting off my old Genesis in a bit to share use of the PS3 with my beautiful fiancée, so during the trip down memory lane, I noticed my collection somewhat lacking. A trip to the local used game store produced the following: Shining Force 1 and 2, Phantasy Star 1 and 2, and a couple PS1 games I wanted, Thrill Kill and Intelligent Cube. Then I learned that a Sega Ultimate Collection disc is coming out with something like 49 titles, including the Genesis titles previously mentioned. I'm a bit of a collector, but does this compilation disc render the old cartridges not worth collecting? P.S. The guy at the shop wants $15 a piece for the Shining Forces and Phantasy Stars. Thanks for writing in, William. So, Genesis, Drunken Gamers, what's your guys' stance on collecting old cartridges? Do you think like kind of like the Virtual Console downloads or like compilation re-releases here kind of renders them useless?
A little bit. I mean, unless you're like a hardcore collector. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who want the original labels. They want the box. They want the instruction manual. I mean, if you're kind of a collector who likes the actual physical stuff, I mean, that's why you buy that stuff anyway. But if I was going to get, and especially for games that are like super expensive, like some of those Shining Force games, especially like the old Saturn ones, like if they ever ported those over to some sort of retro thing, that'd be a deal. So I'd totally snag those before going out to get the physical stuff. Kind of depends on where you sit, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had started to buy some cartridges, and then realized that very quickly it was going to get out of control. There was just going to be too much crap, and I didn't want anything to do with that anymore. So I just started buying the compilations if there was something I was into.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I really like these compilations that make it so much more convenient. You know, you don't got to worry about old cartridges not working anymore, or doing the old school Nintendo blow the cartridge a billion times and hope that the damn thing's plugged in just right to hope that it works. So I think the compilations make it nice. I think like the virtual console downloads make it nice if you can deal with the shortcomings of the space storage on the Wii. But I don't know, Dick. What about you? What do you think of? What do you make of this?
I prefer having something that I can hold and look at and display and all that. So,
gotta have the bragging rights.
Yep, there you go.
I paid $200 for this copy of Super Mario RPG.
No, I just stole that one from one of our local DJs here, but keep that on the hush.
Nice. All right, well, thanks for writing in, William. Once again, that email address is mailbag@ontappodcast.com if anyone wants to write in. So let's get on to the TurboGrafX goodness, or PC Engine as it's known in Japan. That system was like super popular in Japan. I was kind of just looking up some research beforehand. They're still making games for that until 1999.
Yeah. The PC Engine was it was actually very, very popular in Japan. It wasn't quite as popular as a Famicom, but it was up there. Let's just say it was certainly more popular than the Mega Drive in Japan.
Yeah, and let's see, the system came out in America in 1989. I think it beat the Genesis by a few months actually, and according to what I was looking up, it actually seemed like for like the first like a year it was actually starting to do all right. Now,
yeah, it started out pretty well, but there were just too many shortcomings that it had in terms of marketing, in terms of its graphical power. Because in actuality, it's basically a souped-up 8-bit machine, so it couldn't really compete with the horsepower of like the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. And also, in the very early run when it was competing with the NES, I mean, Nintendo had such a lock on exclusive titles, and they had their practices of like punishing developers who would go develop for competing systems. So it had quite a few things quite a few things going against it in the state.
Yeah, Nintendo had that. They had like you said, a monopoly on kind of like keeping third-party publishers and developers in tow, just making games for them, and it's just a shame because at least it looked like the TurboGrafx it was starting to do all right, and it was starting to get a little bit of a dominance. But like the one thing that kind of confused me with it, what NEC did was they released the TurboGrafx CD. Was it just a few months after the TurboGrafx?
Yeah, it wasn't too long.
And like the TurboGrafx that came out for like what was it, like $99.99, right?
The TurboGrafx when it debuted?
Yeah.
I think that might have been it might have been $199.
Oh, $199. Okay.
Give or take. I think it was in the $150 to $200 range.
No, like the way I was kind of thinking the way Sega released their add-ons over the years, so they'd really like wait a couple years and just for NEC to release the TurboGrafx CD add-on just a few months afterwards. Wouldn't that seem like kind of like just like a big shaft that you got this great gaming system and like the TurboGrafx CD that came out for even more money. That was like the add-on. Was
it was
$300,
it was $400 when it first came out.
Wow.
But the deal was, the TurboGrafx CD. I had the TurboGrafx shortly after it came out, and I always, I didn't get the CD. Well, actually, I didn't get the CD at all. I got the Turbo Duo when that came out, but I saw it as a cool feature. But at the time, I felt like there were enough good games on the TurboGrafx 16 that I didn't really necessarily need the CD add-on. Right away. When they released the Turbo Duo, then, they started pumping out some really cool games. Like at launch, they had Gate of Thunder, and they had a whole bunch of what were called the Super CD games, because the Turbo Duo was a little more powerful than the TurboGrafx CD. So I just always felt that the CD, the TurboGrafx CD, was kind of a nice attachment for those who actually really wanted those, more, I guess, cinematic at the time. They had those old school cutscenes and whatnot, and the music and all that stuff. But it wasn't really anything that I felt too badly about.
Yeah, right. Now, how would you guys end up hearing about the TurboGrafx, and or what kind of made you end up getting one, choosing it over the other stuff that was out at the time? Because I have no recollection of ever seeing that stuff for sale growing up here. I think I remember once seeing a Turbo Duo for sale once, but that's it.
Well, me personally, I remember seeing ads for it and for Bonk's Adventure, and thinking that Bonk's Adventure looked really sweet. And actually, how it went was, I think I was in about 8th or 9th grade when I got it, and my dad bought it for me for Christmas. But what the deal was is we went to the store, and he said I could buy a video game system. I could pick one out. And I actually picked the Sega Genesis, but he didn't see the price tag on it, so we got up to the, I was kind of going between the Genesis and the TurboGrafx, and I went with the Genesis, and when we got up to the counter, it rang up, and he was like, "Oh, that's too much. That's too much," because it was like something like $30 or $40 more than the TurboGrafx. So I was like, "All right, I'll take the TurboGrafx then." And I kind of wound up with it by mistake, but I'm actually pretty glad I did, because it exposed me to a game console that probably otherwise I wouldn't have had any idea about.
Right.
Yeah, I remember I used to read this video game magazine called Video Games and Computer Entertainment, and they always would kind of highlight what was out in Japan right now, like what was the next big thing. So it was right when that next, 16-bit wave was starting to come on, and I remember seeing these ads for the PC Engine, and it was like this really tiny. I was used to the Nintendo or the Atari, which were sort of big boxy consoles, and this PC Engine was really like small and sleek and used these cool cards, and they talked about all these really awesome games it was going to have, and I was pretty psyched about it. And then I heard that it was coming to the States, and then when it came out, it was this big ass fucking looked like an engine, and you were just like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. But still the games. I remember playing Keith Courage and Alpha Zones like in Toys R Us and stuff, and wanting to play it then. So it was sort of like this. It was like the next big machine. Now, I actually heard about that before the Super Nintendo. So for some reason that was on my radar well before that.
TurboGrafx, I didn't know what it was until till we were living together in school, and
college. Yeah.
We had to go to, where was that, Goodwill that had one?
Oh yeah,
or a pile of games at least.
Yeah, I got the TurboGrafx at Goodwill for $10.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Of course, that was in 1998 or 9.
Yeah.
Right. But so that's kind of where we heard of it.
Like the first time I actually remember reading about the TurboGrafx was kind of in the early 90s. I remember one of the old magazines I read at the time, Game Players, they were doing a feature on pinball games, kind of like pinball games or the various ones that came out on various platforms over the year, and they were really talking up Aliens Crush and Devil's Crush, and I'm like, TurboGrafx, I've never even heard of this before, what's that? And eventually I saw a few more articles over the years and read other reviews that eventually kind of just heard how it was kind of like a system that just kind of didn't have as big of a market presence as like the Nintendo or Sega stuff at the time, but eventually thanks to you guys, won one of your contests and got a TurboGrafx, and been picking up
That's right.
Thank you, because I only got 7 games for it. I've just been picking up a couple for it over the years here and there, but just been discovering some awesome stuff on it, and it's just still just surprised that so many people miss out on this. Dick, where do you stand on the TurboGrafx and your familiarity with it over the years?
I just played it for the first time today.
Nice.
Played some Devil's Crush.
Oh,
and what is it, Bloody Wolf?
Yes, Bloody Wolf.
Yeah, Bloody Wolf's awesome.
Dude, I had a ball watching you play Bloody Wolf because you're getting pissed off at that Shotgun Man.
Yeah, fuck Shotgun Man.
What do you think of the games, man? So if this is your first time seeing it,
I'm pretty impressed. They're really fun. They look pretty good.
That's what I was kind of surprised by, was the presentation, considering how old it is.
The one thing I thought was really different about Bloody Wolf was that how simple they set up the story for it. Now I know 16-bit games had presentation values. Wasn't expecting big glorious cutscenes or anything, but when you just get for 5 seconds a quick text message saying the president's daughter is kidnapped, rescue her, It's just like, holy shit, okay.
Well, there's no time to mess around,
Yeah,
man.
that's right, man.
You're like, all right, I'm on it.
Yeah.
Alyssa Milano's captured.
Well, you better go fix her. Fix her. I don't know what that means, but you know.
Ish.
Alyssa Milano.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Commando? Wasn't the president's daughter Alyssa Milano in Commando?
That's right.
It was Commando's daughter.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the president's daughter. It's been a while.
The movie you're talking about?
Yeah,
That was Arnie's daughter.
Okay.
What were we playing where Madonna was the...
Oh, that's Vigilante for the TurboGrafx.
Good Lord, that's a horrible...
Madonna's been kidnapped, and you're like, all right, mission accomplished.
That's what I said. I was
I'm gonna shut this off.
Yeah, so I just didn't even start, and I already won.
Yeah. Is she dead, too? Sweet.
Like, no, you have to find the kidnappers and convince them to kill her. Like, oh.
Well, if I have to, I have to.
Yeah, let's talk about the
Sorry.
games here for a minute. Now, what we did in the past was we just kind of talk about all the games we own. And from what I understand, John, Hilda, I think you guys own almost like every game released for the Turbo, right?
Not every game, but I'm working on it. It's
He's having a hard time parting with $400, for one game.
yeah. Although I do have a few very pricey titles, but no. The old story goes before these other guys tell it. Back in junior high school, I actually traded in my TurboGrafx, Turbo Duo, Turbo Express, and all my games for an Atari Jaguar. And
As you can imagine, he was thrilled upon receipt of his
was.
booty.
I was.
Plugged it in and he realized that he'd been screwed.
Well, I flipped on Cybermorph, and I was like, welcome to the next level. Oh, yeah. So anyway, and then when I got into Fremont, I kind of told these guys about it, and they proceeded to ride me every freaking day, practically, just ripping the shit out of me. So when we found that TurboGrafx at the Goodwill for $10, that was kind of what launched me into my, retribution phase. So I began to collect every single game I could get my hands on, and I've got a couple hundred now. Fortunately, the U.S. library isn't that big, so I don't have that far to go. But unfortunately, because of the fact that the console wasn't incredibly popular here, some of the titles are painfully difficult to get a hold of. But I'm working on it. I've got all of the CD games except for maybe 2 or 3, I think. And then the Turbo Chip games, or the Hue Card games, I've got I'd say about 2/3 of them.
Damn, holy crap! Now, I was just listening to like one of your guys' recent episodes from a few shows back. You guys have that kind of like the retro game review segment, and you said
Yep, a random retro review.
And you said recently, I forgot the name, but it was like you stated it was like the last game released in America for the TurboGrafx.
Oh, Magical Chase, is that the one you're thinking of? Yeah, the shoot 'em up.
There were some awesome shoot 'em ups for it. That what came up was it? How long were they making games for the Turbo in America? Was that like 94 or so, maybe?
93 or 94, yeah, I think. I think Air Zonk 2 might have been the last game released. I could be wrong about that, but that one is one of those that's really difficult to find. But yeah, so they had a lot of. I mean, if you want to talk about the shoot 'em ups, they've got quite a few on there, and quite a few great shmups.
Yeah, let's get talking about the games now. I only own 7 games, and how does this sound? I'll just pick a game here to talk about, and then I'll rotate for you guys. And how about you guys pick one of your favorites, just to shed some light on, just kind of talk about for. So, all right,
let's do it.
I'm gonna go from the top of the stack here. Keith Courage and Alpha Zones.
Yes.
A little 2D side scroller action there. Kind of seemed to like for me like. It was like kind of like NSE's attempt to maybe make like their Mario platformer, maybe. I remember it took me.
Maybe.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said yeah, maybe.
And a few things kind of confused me, but I didn't get very far in the game. I think I only got to like the second or third stage in there, and I don't know. Just some of it parts for me maybe just didn't hold up, or I don't know. It was kind of hard for me to get into it, but I don't know. You kind of had a lot. Imagine you had a lot more hands-on time with this one, John.
Were you having a hard time riding the rainbow?
No, this one is like pure nostalgia. It's not really that great of a game, to be
really
honest.
not, no.
It's actually pretty bad, but
It's better than freaking what was it? Altered Beast. Damn
oh
it.
yeah, better than Altered Beast.
I don't care what anybody says.
but you know, I liked it just because it was so oddly Japanese at the time. Like it was so nostalgic for me because when I saw it, I'm like, what the hell is this?
He's like the little golden kitties dropping from the sky.
You know, and you turn into this gigantic mecha, look like an airplane robot suit. You know, it's like this strange shit. Like, and every time I go underground, I turn into a robot when I'm on top. You know, it's like it was this strange. I'd never seen anything like it. So to me, that's what I loved about it.
Now,
There's nothing strange about this to me.
Now, Keith Courage was a pack-in game. Therefore, it was the only game my brother and I had for quite a long time, maybe a couple months. So it got to the point where we could speed run this bitch in like 20 minutes. We found like little, you know, in the mech parts or the robot parts that Hilden mentioned, we found these little shortcuts that weren't intentional shortcuts. They were actually glitches in the game. We had combed through this game so carefully that we could find these little cracks in the floor that we could get through the levels really quickly. And if we timed it just right, we could, you know, go from the top of the level all the way to the bottom in like 2 seconds. And then we figured out how to beat the bosses like super quickly. So yeah, that's one of the things I miss from childhood, you know, is having that time but yet lacking the resources to buy any new games. So you were forced to find, you know, these secrets in the games. So that's kind of why I love Keith Courage. I'll admit it's a pretty bad game, but it's got a soft spot.
I understand you, man. I can kind of relate to you on that. I think like for about 3 years, all I owned for the Nintendo was just Super Mario Brothers, and there's nothing wrong with Mario Brothers. I thought it was fine and all, but I think I kind of combed over that game forever to kind of find every little secret and warp zone and freaking. I could never find the Minus World though. That was just a bitch. One person showed it to me. I was never able to pull it off. But all right. So what's a game you guys would like to talk about?
I'd like to go first.
Go for it.
With the most obvious choice, and that is Bonk's Adventure.
I'm not sure why that would be the obvious one, but whatever.
Because it's Bonk was the closest thing that TurboGrafx had to a mascot, and it was the closest they ever got to like mainstream success. And he's an awesome character. So basically, the premise of Bonk is that you're this little prehistoric caveman with a giant cranium, and you run around and you bonk people with your head in order to, you know, defeat them. And your enemies are little dinosaurs and little birds that are still in their eggs, you know, kind of walking around, and they throw axes at you, of course. You come across enemies that are giant dinosaurs with volcanoes growing out of their backs and shit like that. These were awesome games: Bonk's Adventure, Bonk's Revenge, and then Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure. My favorite game of all time, mainly out of nostalgia, but super awesome series and games that every TurboGrafx owner should definitely check out.
Right, good deal. And wasn't there also a shoot 'em up Bonk game on like the Turbo CD there?
Yep, that's Air Zonk was a turbo chip game, and then the one I mentioned before, Super Air Zonk, was, I believe, one of the last games released for the system. And you can also find Bonk games on Game Boy, NES, and Super Nintendo, but they're not nearly as good as the TurboGrafx versions.
Right. Okay. Well, this next one over here we want to talk about is kind of mentioned a little bit, Devil's Crush. And dude, that game was just. I think this may have to be it's right up there with Pinball Effect. It's one of my favorite video game pinball games ever because. I mean, just kind of. Introducing a concept of kind of just besides your average pinball, flippity flop, whatever, you also got your freaking aliens you got to kill while you're trying to maneuver the damn ball through the screen, man. And that was just badass.
That's right.
Well, I always liked Devil's Crush because it was so it was one of the first games that sort of had this sort of complete the level, beat the boss mentality. Like you'd go to these separate areas and you have to fight a certain challenge, a boss challenge kind of a thing. And, I remember that being one of the, Aliens Crush doing the same thing, and these two games, Devil's Crush and Aliens Crush, kind of were the first ones to break pinball out of just one board, one screen kind of a mode, and show you what video pinball could really be about for me anyway. That's why I love that one.
Yeah, and I think Metroid Prime pinball kind of, when I played that on the DS many years later, or not many years later, but many generations, I don't know. That kind of, did you guys kind of feel any similarities between Alien Crush kind of and Metroid Prime pinball?
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lineage there. I think, for at least for my experience of playing those kind of pinball games, it was Alien Crush, Devil's Crush, and then Kirby's Pinball Land, and then Metroid Prime. I mean, they all sort of follow that same mold.
And I keep telling myself, like, at Midwest Gaming Classic, I always try and buy at least, like, 1 or 2 new TurboGrafX games to try and build up library. I think Alien's Crush is going to be, like, the next one I got to get. Would you consider Alien or Devil's Crush kind of be the better, or would you just kind of consider both like just top pinball games?
They're kind of different. Like, I like Devil's Crush as a more complex pinball game better, but there's something about Alien Crush where you can just go forever and rack up the highest score possible. I mean, it's just something about that game. The games last longer. They're just more free and fun.
Yeah, there's something about Alien Crush that's like almost zen-like. You can just sit there. It's definitely a simpler game. It's only 2 screens. Devil's Crush is, 3, right?
Yeah.
But there's just something about it where I can play Alien Crush all day. I don't know why.
Dick, man, did you want to get anything in about Devil's Crush from what you played earlier?
I didn't get too far in it, so.
You didn't seem like you were getting too into Devil's Crush.
Oh, I liked it. I don't know. I didn't get far, and it was fun. I like how it looks and all that, and I really wanted to get my ball in that guy's mouth that kept moving his eye around, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I like how you worded that. No. So what game's next on your guys' stack you want to talk about?
I'm gonna pick a Ninja Spirit.
I knew you were going to say
Yeah,
that.
I knew Ninja Spirit was coming.
This is one of the first games that really got me like, I've got to collect more of these games. Something about it was like, it was all the fun of Ninja Gaiden, on the NES, but without the balls hard difficulty level. And you could do some crazy shit. You could be like, you had like
the 2 shadows.
The 2 shadows, like your dude would have shadows, and you could like form them into different positions, and then you'd have more like destructive power.
Yeah.
And you had these power ups that were cool, and the level designs were just awesome.
Yeah.
It was like it's still one of my favorite 2D just run and slash kind of games,
Yeah.
And I still play this. So this is probably my most played TurboGrafx game.
Ninja
I think. Spirit
came out right around the time the Turbo Duo came out. So. And I think it might have been because for a while, the Turbo Duo had a crazy pack-in deal. They had Gate of Thunder, Bonk 1 and 2, Bomberman, Ys Book 1 and 2, and then you either got Dungeon Explorer, which is a great game, or Ninja Spirit.
Right.
And so Ninja Spirit, when I first got the Turbo Duo, it was just a freaking geek orgasm because, I mean, between Gate of Thunder and Ninja Spirit, I was like, I didn't regret going with the TurboGrafx at all at that point.
Nice. I remember
and yet you traded it all.
Fuck you. Dale, have you played Ninja
yes,
Spirit?
Just briefly. I remember at MGC they had the Turbo Express there with like a bunch of games to try out. And I just saw the word ninja in the title, and I had to give it a try. Reminded me of the old school Genesis, what was it, Shinobi games? A little bit?
Shinobi, yeah.
But it seems like you could actually do a lot more attacks and stuff in this one.
Yeah, Ninja Spirit is an awesome game.
Nice. All right, well, the next one on the stack here is kind of already talked about again a little earlier, but Bloody Wolf. I just kind of I liked it because it reminded me a lot like, not exactly like Contra, just the fact that you had a life bar in this game made it better in my opinion. Contra is great, but the fact that you die in one shot every time just irks the living hell out of me.
But man, it's just like real life, yo.
Yeah. Fuck realism.
Yeah, man.
Right.
War's crazy.
War is hell. And war has changed. Sorry.
No.
But yeah, man, Bloody Wolf is spectacular. It's one of the. It's
Wasn't
definitely
that kind of like Russian Attack?
Yeah, a little bit. More like Akari Warriors. I think, kind of.
This is the top down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's mostly top down. You got to save the president or whatever, and there's an awesome scene actually when you actually go to save the president. That's not the end of the game. You actually have to go save him, and he's being held in this room, and all your weapons are taken away, so it's a knife fight.
Yeah.
And it's badass. And then after you get the president, you got to get it's an escort mission. You got to get his ass out of the village, and then you wind up in a POW camp. Oh. Yeah. It's such a great game, man. It's awesome. It's like a Rambo movie in a video game.
I'm right there with you. I wish I could have got a little farther. And we're both having troubles with the motorcycles. Apparently, it's like difficult or something to get off them, and we blew up once the fuel or got hit a few times. Or I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, right at the beginning, right in the first level. Yeah. So, I think to get off, what do you hit the select button or something like that? I don't remember.
The select button.
Maybe, I don't know. It's something like that. But the motorcycles are awesome because you just can, you run over everybody. Just freaking pile over them.
Yeah, definitely. And I was watching Deckel earlier beat Shotgun Man, and why don't you tell us about that, man?
About the fight?
Yeah.
I don't know. He shoots a shotgun at you, and then you have to dodge it and shoot him back. And then all of a sudden he's got, I don't know, they look like almost, I think they're like medieval knights is what they look like to me.
They're armored soldiers, man. They're armored soldiers.
And I'm shooting them in the face, and they're not dying. And
No, you got to knife the armored soldiers.
Oh, okay. I just jumped over him and then knifed Shotgun Man himself.
Here's a little pro tip for you. If you get close to any enemy, you'll automatically use your knife. So you just got to get right up close to him and just stab him in the face.
Awesome. I will do that.
You sound enthralled. You're like I'm getting right back on it. The Shotgun Man's going down, bitch.
Stab those bitches.
Right in the fucking face. All right, what game do you guys want to talk about next?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn between Blazing Lasers and Galaga, whatever that was.
Galaga 90. Oh, yeah. Galaga 90's fucking incredible.
Yeah, and I don't know why. They're both. I mean, obviously they're both shooters, but they're two different kinds of shooters.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about Galaga, but I don't know. It's like it's bubblegum,
awesome.
bubbly, cute.
Yeah.
Yet I don't know. I can't tell you why. There's just something about it that is incredibly satisfying. It's like that Zen, kind of experience. I could play that for hours.
Yeah, there is something about Galaga 90 or 88 or whatever the hell,
I guess it depends on where you bought it.
Yeah, depending on what country you were in when it came out. But it's really well done. It seems a bit more fast paced than the original Galaga.
Well, plus
That might be.
Plus, there's like you have the bigger enemies that are chained together with the smaller ones. So if you get the big one, it combos up and you get more. So there's like a better point scoring system. And then there's those like scrolling moments. Like Galaga, the original Galaga never scrolled. You stayed in one spot. Yeah. And this one you actually move through like some asteroid levels. And there's like a map too. There was like a level map. You could pick which direction you wanted to go or something. So that made it really cool too. There was multiple paths through the game.
It's
really fun.
It's just a kick-ass, kind of stationary, for the most part, shooter setup.
Perfect for the portable Turbo Express, too.
Yeah, it is a perfect portable game. So
it's one of the pioneer of shmups.
And, of course, Blazing Lasers, everyone's played that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Blazing Lasers is great. It's that one, and we talked on our show last week, we talked a bit about R-Type.
Yeah.
Blazing Lasers and R-Type are kind of the first two shmups that I remember distinctly playing when I was a kid. And I liked Blazing Lasers better because it didn't make me weep.
Pussy.
Yeah, I have Blazing Lasers, and I gotta say, that one seemed a little more, not easy, but I was actually able to get farther than the second level.
I think that's fair. Blazing Lasers is quite a bit easier.
Yeah, just ask DJ Incompetent about his Blazing Laser skills.
No kidding.
At the Midwest Gaming Classic.
He plays it with flasks.
Yeah, so
he doesn't even have to use the controller.
No, he can just set the controller down and still beat that game.
Just use his mind.
Pretty much. And
science.
And liquor. But, yeah. I like the fact that it's a little bit easy.
I just like the dude.
Just because, again, a little bit mindless.
Sidearms, that's another shmup. That one I had a little problems kind of getting into. I thought it worked fine. It was just you kind of move your dude left and right and up and down. Not like, it's kind of harder to come in.
It's a horizontal shooter, right?
Yeah. It's kind of both. It kind of goes up, down, left, right, all over the place.
I can't remember what this is. This the two guys?
No, you're thinking Forgotten Worlds.
That's what I'm thinking.
But it's similar to that. You're a guy. You're not a ship,
right?
And you start out scrolling horizontally, and then there are some short vertical segments. In Japan, there's actually released Sidearms Special on the Turbo CD or the PC Engine CD, I guess. A slightly better version, but Sidearms for the TurboGrafx is still pretty good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, can't get past the first level in that one. I got hung up pretty good. I have no awesome shmup skills ors.
It's all right, man. Still a good game.
I'll give it another attempt. So what's another one off your guys' stack?
I'll go. I mentioned Dungeon Explorer before, so I'm going to go with that one. It's a up to 5-player gauntlet style game.
Yeah, that's kind of nuts. 5.
Yeah,
5. Who chose 5?
I don't know. But better than Gauntlet in every possible way. It's a spectacular game. You choose between a fighter, a bard, a warlock, all that shit, and then the king sends you on some mission to beat
Save Madonna.
To save medieval Madonna, who is hairier than modern Madonna, if you can believe that. But anyway, I don't know where that came from.
They called her a wench.
Right. So, but, it's got the gauntlet thing where, you have like these little enemy spawning, pits or whatever, and you have to shoot the pits in order to make the enemy stop spawning and whatnot. But like I said, it's better than Gauntlet simply because the level designs are cooler. It looks like, it looks a little bit more like an old Zelda game, like Zelda 3 maybe. Not quite as good, obviously, but it's a really great game and an awesome party game. Like if you just, I think it started raining, but it's an awesome party game. If you've got a few friends over, just get them together and play it. It's a fantastic game. It's also on the Virtual Console and it works. I think it's only up to 4 players because of the Wii's limitations or whatever. Imagine that.
It doesn't have any limitations.
Yes, I'm sorry. But anyway.
It's well established.
There you go. Dungeon Explorer. And it's also, if you're a collector, if you're a TurboGrafx collector, if you want to start collecting these games, Dungeon Explorer is insanely reasonable. You can get a complete copy for like $10-15 tops.
How would the remake end up being that just came out a couple of years back?
The remake came out, for PSP and... I don't know if the DS version came out or not. I don't remember, but it's not very good, unfortunately. It's kind of shitty.
I remember this, and it was very exciting.
Yes.
And then it was very sad. And had the happy light been there, we might have had a better day. But so incidentally, what you don't know is John has a happy light here.
Yes,
it's saving him from the winter doldrums.
It is. But yeah, so the PSP version, not that good.
All right, I only got 2 left here in my stack. And one of them, they're both sports games, and this one I really like, World Court Tennis, just because it's a crazy RPG kind of tennis game. You kind of have a quest mode, and instead of doing battles, you do tennis matches. So I was kind of fascinated with that. And the tennis itself is actually just not a whole lot to it, but it works and it works well. And it was a surprise, you got a tennis game with an almost RPG like storyline to it. And for that, I am grateful. What I wasn't grateful for was no save feature.
No save. You don't need a save feature.
That's right.
That's just like the Wii, man. You don't need a save feature. You don't need hard drives. What would you need to store anything for?
Were you guys familiar with World Court Tennis?
Vaguely, yeah. I've got it. I'm not big into the old 8 and 16-bit sports games, so I've played it a little bit, but not much. It reminds me a little bit of Moto Rotor though on the TurboGrafx, because the Moto Rotor had kind of the is it Moto Rotor I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
No, it's a different one actually. It's a different racing game. Sorry, I'm all over the place, but it reminds me of that, whatever that one is, because it's got kind of the RPG elements to it. Like there's a lot of leveling up, and there's like a little mini quest behind it. Let me find that game for you.
Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Advance did that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
No, Final Lap Twin is the game I'm thinking of. It reminds me of Final Lap Twin on the Turbo, which is a great little racing game because of those kind of leveling up / RPG quest kind of elements.
Yeah, I do remember. I remember Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Advance also. That one kind of continued the, add a RPG storyline into a tennis game. And I'm a sucker for that. And Quest, I think, is not Quest, Camelot. They're a good developer.
Yeah, Camelot.
All right. The last game I got on my stack here is TV Sports Football. Yeah, it's not good.
Right on, yeah. The Turbo didn't really have that many great sports games. The Turbo Duo had, actually, surprisingly, they had a Madden game. Can you believe that?
Holy crap.
But,
well, anymore, no, I'm not surprised at all, because...
Well, back in the day,
doesn't Madden come out for tray liners now at McDonald's?
Exactly. Madden was kind of exclusive to the Genesis back then, but somehow the Turbo Duo wound up with a Madden game.
Yeah, I think Madden came out on it. I got a Madden for the 3DO. And...
Right on, yeah.
All right, so we're all done with ours, but why don't you guys keep going one more from all three of you here? I want to hear the best of the best.
All right, Hilden, you want to
Best of the best.
The best of the best, huh? Well, I think we've talked about a lot of the really, really good ones. I mean, let's see. Splatterhouse. Yeah, we need to talk about Splatterhouse. Let it be yours. You talk about Splatterhouse.
All right, I'll go. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to jump in on you there, but Splatterhouse is fucking great. It's actually not a very good game. I mean, it's just kind of all right. It's a side scroller, kind of hack and slasher, literally. But it's bloody as hell. It's ridiculous. You play this big guy named Rick, and he's wearing a Jason mask, like a hockey mask, and he's saving his girlfriend from some crazy
from Madonna. I think it's from Madonna.
Oh yeah,
Madonna,
he's saving his. This time Madonna's the villain. It's more appropriate to the source material. But anyway,
I think she was a villain before having you have to go out on that stupid quest.
Yeah.
That bitch.
But it's awesome because there's just blood, guts everywhere. If you've got a Sega Genesis, Splatterhouse saw 2 sequels on the Genesis, Splatterhouse 2 and 3, and those are actually pretty good too. Well, good and bad in their own way. Yeah, right. And actually, Namco is putting out a new Splatterhouse game.
Maybe it might have gotten canned.
They canned the developer.
Oh,
the game
still lives.
What a bitch, man! It's like the game's almost done, and they're like, "All right, thanks for your time. We're taking your game. Fuck you." But it sounds like the game's still going, and I think it's coming out for the 360 and PS3 or something.
Yeah.
And it looks like it keeps a lot of the source material there.
Yeah.
But Splatterhouse, and it's pretty easy to find too. You can probably get it for like $10-$20.
I'm going to have to say Legendary Axe, one of the best of the best.
Hell yeah.
You're a side-scrolling caveman with an axe. It's a legendary axe, and you have to go through. And then, it's got some, homages, I think, to, like, Pitfall, where you have to swing on ropes and jump over pits and shit, but it's really fun, It's tough, but it's good. It's tough. It's a tough game.
Legendary Axe 2 is pretty good, too.
Yeah, but you changes it. You're not a caveman anymore. Legendary Axe 2, you don't even have an axe. You've got a sword, and you're just a knight.
Yeah, you look like Conan.
Yeah, it doesn't make any. It's like a Rastan clone, man. But yeah, no. Legendary Axe is probably one that everyone should own. The first one, at least.
Well, I haven't played any other games, so I can't say anymore. But there's one that you should at least mention. I can't remember the title, but it's where you poop in the woods, like Jay and Steve.
JJ and Jeff.
Yeah, JJ and Jeff.
In Japan, it was called Kato and Ken.
Yeah. So apparently you can poop behind bushes and.
It's a JJ and Jeff are detectives. It's a detective agency,
obviously,
and it's a platformer, and it's fucking great. They look like Beavis and Butthead. They've got giant heads, except they wear polyester suits instead of
so they're classy
instead of AC/DC shirts. So yeah, there's just a lot of poop. Birds fly over and poop on your head. There's a couple scenes where JJ and or Jeff is sitting behind the bush taking a dump or whatever.
Yeah, so for all you scatologists.
Yes, that's an awesome game. Before we wrap up, let's throw out just like a few quickies. I mean, there's so many great games, but
yeah, by all means, man. Go
Gate of Thunder, Lords of Thunder.
Was Gate of those weren't on the
Turbo Duo.
The Duo, yeah.
There's CD games. If we're just talking about Hue card games, chip games, there's R-Type. There's Newtopia 1 and 2, which are pretty good Zelda clones.
That's right. Crater Maze.
Crater Maze is awesome. It's like a psychedelic Bomberman almost, only cooler. And actually the Bomberman games on TurboGrafx are really good, like Bomberman 93 or 94 or whatever it is. And the original Bomberman is pretty decent. What else? I'm forgetting a whole ton of stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, that's good for now, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the Star Soldier series.
Oh, Star Soldier, yeah.
Super Star Soldier, Soldier Blade, Final Soldier, all that stuff. Awesome games.
Right on. Yeah, I remember I came close to getting one of the Legendary Axe games. I remember hearing great things about 1 and 2 and debating between which one to get. I think in MGC I'll probably have to end up getting at least like 2 or 3 this year because.
Right on, man.
Yeah, just hearing all this love for these old Turbo games has really got me really wanting to add to my collection. And I don't have a Virtual Console anymore, or the Wii anymore, so I can't really add to the Virtual Console. And they got about a good collection of stuff up for the Turbo on the Virtual Console, right? About what?
Yeah,
60,
I was just going to say, like, if you're looking for some of these games that have been mentioned on this podcast, the Virtual Console has a lot of them.
I think it's got probably every one we mentioned, actually.
Does it have Legendary Axe 1 and 2?
Oh, Legendary Axe, I don't know if it's
so.
got those. But other than that, I think it's got just about all of them.
Before we close out, I got to ask, you guys got to give me at least, throw out your top 2 or 3 all-time favorite TurboGrafx games.
Top 2 or 3 all-time favorites. I'm going Gate of Thunder, any of the Bonk games, and Dungeon Explorer, probably.
Yeah, I'd say Gate of Thunder, Galaga 90, and Blazing Lasers.
And I'm going to say Ninja Spirit, Galaga 90, and I'm going to have to go Star Soldier. Probably Star Soldier on that one.
Right on.
Awesome. For the 7 I own, I'll say Devil's Crush and Bloody Wolf. So, all right, wow, dude, this is an awesome trip to the past. Thanks for doing this. And before we go, if people aren't familiar with you guys on Drunken Gamers Radio, why don't you fill people in what they're missing out?
Oh, not much.
Not much. No, we do the podcast weekly. We do a live video show once a month. You can find it and many more things at robotpanic.com.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, guys, for joining, for coming on and doing this. This is just awesome. And if anyone wants to write in again, so if you got any TurboGrafx memories you want to share, gladly read it on the next episode here, mailbag@ontappodcast.com. And, of course, don't forget to check out our forums, which can be found on the VGEVO podcast network at vgevo.com. Speaking of the podcast network, one of its other affiliates, Gamers Only Older, or somebody you know as Welcome to the Goo, I was a guest host on their most recent episode where we talk about collecting old games, ways to save money on it, and some of our favorite things to come out of this console generation thus far. So make sure to check that out if you have a second. So, and that about wraps it up. Thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next time.